So we're very lucky to have Ervin Laszlo here with us from his home in Italy to talk about the humanity's sacred mission and the great upshift. And this is the copy of the book that Ervin and I um, edited and came out about just over a year ago. We had a big launch for it. Humanity's coming advance towards peace and harmony on the planet. And you might think this is an unlikely hypothesis, but we're going to postulate it and talk about it. Ervin is an honorary member of the network, has been for quite some time. His achievements are really far too lengthy to list in any form at all, because he's written and edited a huge number, over 100 books, and he started life, as you may know, as a concert pianist, as a child prodigy, and then moved over to evolution and systems theory. And I understand that a documentary is currently being made about his life, which I hope we'll be able to have a look at and talk about it. So, Ervin, I'm going to read the initial statement you made to start us off,
Okay.
and then maybe you would then comment on that, elaborate a little bit on this initial statement, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, David. My first comment is to say thanks. Nice to be here on the SMN Network show. And I look forward to talking with you uh, because we have collaborated in this book. And it's a marvelous occasion to set forth this collaboration because I think this book is more relevant today than it was even a year ago when it came out. So thanks, David, for inviting me, for suggesting this whole meeting. And I look forward to chatting with you.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think it's more relevant now than it was when it came out. And I'd actually like just to dedicate this meeting, if you don't mind, to the memory of Elizabeth Sartouris, who was a
Yes.
colleague and also an honorary member, who died about 6 weeks ago. And in fact, an online event is being held to celebrate her life later today. So she was one of an evolution biologist who was encouraging us to move towards cooperation. A mature species is a cooperative species, she used to say. So this is what you wrote, Ervin. Humankind has reached the critical bifurcation and is on the threshold of a new phase. This phase is already launching and is bringing the upshift to the next stage of humanity's evolution. It is our task to recognize and empower this new phase, transforming its potential into the new reality. And you add that this is the question is what's the evidence for this and how we can act, and that this in fact is the sacred quest for all conscious and responsible members of the human family. So that was your initial statement. Maybe you'd like to expand on it a little bit, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
I would already correct one part of this statement. It said this upshift phase is already launching. I would say it has already launched. A
Okay.
year later, we are in the midst of the tremendous upshift. It doesn't mean that it's all positive. We can talk about that. But the upshift is happening. It is before us. It's called by many names, globalization, planetary systems theory and global ethics and all that. But the fact is global politics, global ecology, all of that. The fact is that it has launched. It is a reality, but it is not a completely happy reality. There are things we need to do to make it a positive upshift toward the next phase of our collective evolution.
Yes, I mean, I remember some time ago you coined this phrase planetary ethic in an earlier book, probably around 2012. Um, and I think this depends on a realization that I think more people are coming to of the oneness of life. and I would add the oneness of mind, because it means that all forms of life are intrinsically interconnected.
I would say that is absolutely key. Oneness is the direction toward which healthy, coherent evolution is going. But this evolution that we are living today is not completely healthy and it's not coherent. That's the problem. So we have an upshift, but upshift to where? We need to have an upshift to a better world, to the next phase of our evolution as conscious human beings. And that phase still has to be adjusted, corrected, managed, because it is here, but it is not coherent enough to serve humanity as a planetary species.
Yes, and I think that the coherence is very relevant here, but because there's also, we as a group, if you like, and there are many organizations like the Institute of Noetic Sciences, who are operating in the same field. We aren't sufficiently coherent ourselves, and we have to have a much clearer idea, much clearer cooperation, and a clearer idea of exactly what this upshift consists of. What do you see as its principal features or key ideas of an upshift?
What we need, what we are striving toward, or should be striving toward, is super-coherence. Super-coherence. It means that we are being systems, quantum systems, if you like, who are coherent within us, with all our elements working together. So that's what happens to one, also happens to the other, and together they can maintain the system and help it to evolve further. Supercoherence also means that we are coherent with the world around us. And that is another facet which is badly missing today. We are not coherent. At least most parts of humanity are not coherent with many other parts. We need to develop the sense that we are one with the community life of life, and the community of life on earth is one with life altogether, with the wholeness that it is persisting and managing and evolving here on earth. We have to shift this. We have to shift toward a wholeness, tropism. A tropism, I mean, that's what I mean by it's an inclination, a tendency, attraction, if you like. I'll talk about the holotropic attraction. So this oneness tropic is absolutely essential today, and that is the direction we need to be going. We need to feel our oneness. It's not that we are one only with us. We are not just one piece system. We are whole system, a system of all systems. Humanity's well-being depends on the realization that what is good for the system of life on Earth is good for each of us individually. And putting one element of this forward as being our prime goal is counterproductive. We can't put humanity first. We can't put any species first. We have to put the whole first. And that is not altruism, that is pragmatism. Because as I said, what is good for that whole system is good for each of us. So,
Do you think it strikes me that something like the Earth Charter, which is 25 years old, is one of the documents in which these kind of thoughts are articulated. But the problem is that we don't bother acting on these fine words. We've got all the documents we need, if you like, to have made a shift already. So
well,
what's
that,
the
that's, that's how we come out with the book that we jointly edited, because we need to make that a sacred mission to recognize that the wholeness that we find in the universe and around it, on this planet, around us, is a whole attribute, is a wholeness. And to realize it, to achieve it, is a sacred task. And that is, I think, the key realization. It's not enough to talk about it. It's necessary to recognize that we are one with that sacred whole, which is life, Gaia system, oneness of life. So we have to make it more than just a plain task, everyday task. It is a central task because achieving it means living, evolving, moving forward. Failing to achieve it means to leave the community of life on Earth, to become extinct, actually, at least as a conscious being. That is the danger. But the opportunity, the other side of the coin, is that we can make the world a better place. We can become the next level of evolution on Earth, more coherent, more one, more smoothly going uphill, upshifting. The interesting thing is that this upshift is in everybody's insides, in everybody's gut feeling. We are born into it. We are socially holotropic beings. We are beings who are whole if you only become natural. But we don't let ourselves become natural or become whole. We superimpose our own short-term, partial interests and seek only those as a primary goal. The primary goal is to make life flourish on this planet. That is the goal of us, of each of us, and it is a goal that we need to pursue if we are to live and survive and move forward on this planet. There
It's
is nothing more sacred than becoming, following the holotropic attraction on this in this universe.
So I like just to bring this to the inner life, but because at the moment I'm reading a very interesting book by Kyriakos Markides called A Mountain of Silence, which is about the monks and saints on Mount Athos, and what of course they experience the divine oneness and divine love and divine light, um, absolutely uh, profoundly and with full reality, so that they it's completely given, if you like. And so there's maybe a complementarity between this inner mystical experience and then the outer feeling of the oneness of life, from a more systems point of view, in Gaia. And you yourself have written about the importance of love and applying love. So how would you elaborate on that?
Love is the inner feeling, is what we experience when we act in symphony, in harmony with evolution on this planet. Evolution, love is what guides us. If we are feeling love toward the world around us, we are promoting evolution and we are helping all beings as our conscious being, as one of the very few highly conscious beings. Everybody has consciousness, but this level that we achieved as humans is rare on this earth. Perhaps we have achieved this more than any other species. And that is being conscious and be consciously guiding the process toward a direction which ultimately means that all of life, all of the physical nature, not only biological nature, all of it is really one. There is a holotropism right in the universe from the very beginning, from the time of the Big Bang, 13.7 billion years ago or so. The first particles, when they were attracted to the hydrogen nuclei, these energy or electrons, they were not simply agglomerating. They are not just joining others, they were integrating with others. They create integral systems. We don't just produce more and more, we have to produce more and more integral and well assembled, intercommunicated systems. Tropism, yes, tropism from the first step of the Earth system to the present step, where we are a conscious species able to recognize who we are and what the world around us is. This is not a passive, indifferent universe. This seems to be a universe oriented toward the creating of wholes, of integral oneness in the world. That is the way that evolution in nature occurs. Every living system, a flower, a plant of any kind, an animal of any kind, down to the simplest ones, is not more nor less than a living whole world in which all elements are intercommunicating, all elements join together to create a system, not just one at the expense of the other. So what is happening today can be said in a few words. What is happening is that this trend, this tendency toward wholeness is being subjugated to the tendency to choose our own good, to select ourselves as the primary aim of who we are, of what we want to be. We are not just moving, should be moving toward whole systems. Instead, we are moving toward agglomerations of systems. More and more of the same are similar as long as it belongs to us. So this is like eating food, having more and more food in front of us and eating it perhaps with good appetite, but eating it without being able to digest it, without being able to put it to use. We need to have the digestion, which is to become capable of coherence with the world around us. That is, we need to become, evolve ourselves into evolution, not agglomeration, not evolution. Tropism and oneness in which we move together toward the super-coherence that appears to be the aim of all development in this universe. I discuss this in more detail, as you know, but I think this is the crux of the matter. Not enough to agglomerate one thing into another. It means to join one thing to another into a sensitive whole that together promotes the oneness which underlies all reality on this planet and probably throughout the universe.
Yes, I think we've both said this more times than we can remember, that it's a change of thinking, of way of thinking that needs to happen, because even now we are dominated, and biology is particularly relevant in this respect, by the mechanistic metaphor, by the idea of the machine, by the idea that humans are actually machines. And that we need an upgrade through implants and in order to make us cleverer rather than more wise. And I'm wondering about I've mentioned this on a number of webinars, but I've been rereading the work of Lewis Mumford, and there's a book from 1957 called The Transformations of Man. And he said at that point, so it's a long time ago, that there is this move towards a unification, if you like. But he then said there are two forms that this can take. One is what he calls mechanical uniformity, and that's where you try and make everybody think the same thing. And we've seen a lot of that over the last 5 years. And the other is unity and diversity, which is nature's way. And the holotropic, if you like, there's this tendency towards wholeness, which is actually working with nature rather than being influenced by this mechanistic metaphor. So I suppose the answer to my question, if I answered my own question, I would be saying, well, we're already getting these answers from science. No quantum entanglement, ecosystems, coherence, supercoherence, as you've been saying. And so these ideas are already coming forward very strongly in science, but they need to percolate more deeply, I think.
Well, it's the deepest realization. Actually, it's something that we have had, that tribal people, that indigenous people have, that they are part of something larger than they themselves. This is William James said that about the religious experience is the feeling that you are part of something larger. And this is a deep recognition that has been part of humanity, part of all conscious being, that we are together, that we are part of something which is more than each of us separately. There is finally no separation. Einstein was right when he said there is separateness is an illusion. And every level, there's only joining together. But failing to recognize this is failing to act on it. In fact, sometimes to act on the opposite, act as though we would be a primary element of this whole, whereas only we are one of the many that together form the whole. This recognition of oneness, of belonging, of wholeness, of love, all this is an age-old recognition and experience. Now it has come to the point where we need to practice it, put it into practice. Our survival on this planet depends on it. Entirely misplaced to think that we can just act on our own interests, conceived as in a short term, mechanistic and economically selfish way. We are together a system that's one. That's the quantum system idea. You can't remove an element of a quantum system without disturbing, without changing the whole. The whole is a wholeness, is a result, is the outcome of the manifestation of the joining together, sensitively joining, communicating, narrating to each other. This is the life of the lesson of biology. We are biological living beings, but we are also conscious beings, and our consciousness needs to be adjusted, needs to take for sure, recognize that our biological wholeness is also a wholeness of consciousness. We are together one. And this recognition is old, but it now needs to be acted upon. And I hope that this book that we published together and now this webinar that we are doing together can help people recognize that this is not idle speculation. This is a fact of life in the biological and ecological domain. And it's a fact that we need to make conscious, because to recognize it is to know that is to promote it is a key element of the sacred wholeness, of the sacred mission that we have. This is not an everyday mission. This is what depends on what creates the possibility, the potential for living, for evolving. We need to discuss this. We need to come back to ourselves. Going forward in this case is to come back, but not back on the same level. Go deeper down, and we recognize our oneness as being a fundamental element of all life, of all being, all existence on this planet.
Yes, I'm sure people are wondering, well, we agree with all this, but how is it actually going to come about? Because I mean, as you remember, I imagine many conversations with Elia Prigogine when he talked about the system, a small perturbation to the system means that the system can go on as usual, but it needs a very considerable perturbation to move it into a new phase. And so I think collectively and individually we're the same, that we don't like change, we don't like changing ourselves, and we need something needs to happen. And this is where, the near-death experience is a good example. Something pretty fundamental needs to happen for us to say, I think I should do things differently. So do you think that gets onto the whole theme, I suppose, of breakdown and breakthrough, that you can't have a breakthrough unless there's a breakdown? How do you see that?
Well, we need to recognize that there are no real alternatives, no alternatives to this recognition and to acting on it. Everything else is literally a dead end. Humanity has to return to oneness with the world of life on this planet, and the world of life as being one with life wherever it occurs on the planet. No alternatives, no good way that we can do without it. This is the way we can do, we must go. And to recognize this is to recognize that the sacred mission is to act on our recognition of who we are, that we are one with the world. That is a sacred mission because it is the way forward, and it admits no alternatives. It admits no conscious deviation from it. It is the way forward. And why we are going to recognize it? Because gradually this recognition of there is no alternative is seeping through our mind, seeping through the consciousness of humanity. We are not playing games. We are trying to create a basis, a foundation for life on this planet. And this is our life. This is our being. And we are creating the basis for it, the enduring basis. Moving from spontaneousness to rational recognition, to wholeness as a path of life. This is our mission, to move this into a conscious domain. It will happen because this is the survival imperative. If we don't do it, our existence on this planet is in danger. So
I think a lot of people agree with that, but I mean, it seems to me that the crisis that we're in is not sufficiently realized for us to collectively, for us to say we've got to do things a different way. So I think business as usual is going to hang on for as long as it can, until it's absolutely impossible. So I don't know this. Peter Dunoff used to say that the two things that bring about change are a combination of tension inside, and pressure on the outside. And although everybody's talking about the poly crisis and we've got to do things differently, largely we aren't. And so, what? How do we accelerate, if you like, this realization? Because from the realization comes a different way of looking at things and a different set of actions and priorities.
it's a different paradigm needed, a different worldview. You're not just adding on something to the existing worldview. To recognize that this is a living universe. It's a breathing, conscious universe of which you are a part. And this universe is endangered by any part not joining it, by failing to work with it. So I think being part of a conscious part of this universe, it means that we can act on our recognition. When we come to the point, the critical point, the bifurcation point, and there are no real alternatives, then the gut feeling of who we are, that we are part of something larger, and that together we can evolve. Such a gut feeling is surfacing in periods of danger, in periods of of risk and breakdown, this gut feelings is surfacing. Let's make it surface without having again, to live through the danger of a breakdown. We can break down in our conscious mind, recognizing that it is coming unless we act differently. And then let's act on a new realization that we can act together. We have everything we need to become conscious of our risk, of our bifurcation, of our choice, of moving from one to another part to another, together with others, not separately. So the dimension of evolution from aggregation has to move towards really evolution and interaction. Aggregation today, almost all human beings on this planet, except for some isolated tribes, are now joined into networks of communication, of information. Everything is moving together. We are becoming a global species. But the news, the information that is moving through these networks is not necessarily evolved. It's still an information of a previous period where it is I, it is me, it is mine, and everything else is secondary. This realization, if it comes through, changes the way people think. Because there are, as I said again and again, there are really no alternatives. This is the bifurcation point at which we are living. We are evolving very fast, agglomerating different ways, but only agglomerating and not really interacting. We need to interface, intercommunicate. We need to process each other into becoming a whole. And that is the recognition that comes through in quantum physics. We know we are not outside the world, we are part of it. And whatever we do changes the world. Whatever happens to the world changes us. This feeling of becoming one of a complex process that's moving towards coherence. If we would not disturb it, if we would not act differently, it would probably move toward coherence and then super-coherence, because the whole process of evolution of the universe seems to move toward increasing levels of coherence from the total chaos just after the big shift, the Big Bang, 13.7 or 8 billion years ago. Just after the coherence is growing gradually, intermittently, and haltingly in a very non-linear fashion, but on the whole, coherence is moving. Humanity is becoming more coherent by interacting in this world, but failing as yet to recognize consciously that this coherence is a precondition of existence and evolution. This is the
Yeah, I think it has to be a felt sense. Let me just read you something from a message which I'll put into the chat for people, which somebody sent on the Chartres Academy WhatsApp, and then I got it sent to me, and it's called a message of hope. And I'm just going to read you the first 2 or 3 paragraphs because
May I interrupt for a moment and ask if Ervin could move the microphone a bit closer?
sure, yeah.
Right. Just
Um,
having a little low volume on Ervin's end.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bruce. And so this woman says, I visited a different reality. What I saw in our future will blow your mind. It changed me forever. I had a dream, you know, the kind where you wake up wondering if your brain just got hacked by some higher power. It was so vivid, so real, that I'm still not convinced I didn't accidentally astral project into an alternate reality. And in this dream, something incredible happened. The world changed overnight. No warning, no memo from the universe, just boom, a complete cosmic shift. It wasn't an apocalypse, praise the stars. My only survival skill is sarcasm in brackets. No zombies, no asteroids hurling towards us, no sudden shortages of bacon. It was something far more extraordinary. And this is the key insight here. We remembered that we weren't separate. Let that sink in for a second. all the walls we'd built around ourselves, the ones that make us think that we're little islands floating around in a vast ocean, disappeared. And suddenly we could feel each other's emotions, all of them, raw, unfiltered, and frankly overwhelming. Imagine scrolling through everyone's emotional Facebook post at the same time, but instead of just watching it, you feel it. It was like that. And she goes on, for 2 or 3 pages, and I'll put this in the chat for people to have a look at. But the point is that it's a change in the felt sense. And so that's how we start relating differently to people, because we feel differently ourselves.
I think this change in our mentality is gradually and perhaps actually quite rapidly becoming essential, becoming a precondition of our survival. Look at the trends that we have in the world today, the trends that affect our life. All of those, if projected into the future, lead to a breakdown of human life. Because on this planet, we cannot continue to exist the way we have been without changing the essential balances, whether it's the climate, whether it's the ocean levels, whether it's population growth, on and on, we could say. All of those things projected in the future spell breakdown. That means it is now time to change. We can change. The experience that we just recounted, David, means that we can all have this. It's a human experience. If you're not conscious of it, we are beginning to feel it. To guide this, to be guided by us, we have to make it more conscious. It's wonderful that there are such examples written down, because it's essential that we change, and we should change without going through the trauma of sacrificing human life, human populations. Change by recognizing on
That's exactly the crux. And I put that into the chat for everybody. But while we've been talking, Ervin, I've got this small insect which has been walking along the top of my computer, and it's now got to the edge, literally, and it's wondering where it goes next, which is a wonderful kind of parable of our discussion, because he's reached the frontier, and his little antennae are going like that, saying, "Well, what's the next move?" And it's a little bit like that for us, I think, isn't it?
Well, yes, we are bugs moving around along a large screen, but we don't recognize the nature of the screen. We think that it's flat and that things happen on it outside of us. But whatever happens on the screen is multidimensional and is part of us. So our oneness is an old saying that we keep repeating, but our oneness is essential so to find our way forward. We have this possibility of having experiences like this. All great art is an experience of oneness. All great spiritual systems, religions, and other systems are all experiences of oneness. Separation disappears very rapidly when we move beyond the everyday world and its short-term wants and desires and presuppositions. We have to move a little bit further. Further means also distancing, moving a little further back, as it were, so we get a larger panorama. If we consider only the short term, only the immediate present, we find breakdown after breakdown coming because the projections forward, the literal projections, are negative. With some exceptions, yes, but no true exceptions. We are overstepping the limits of existence on this planet. But if we move a little bit further back, then we recognize that what is happening here is just a surface phenomenon. We are looking at the shift, at the oneness, at the changes that are taking place in the short-term perspective. If you look at the longer term, you'll see that these shifts, these happenings are actually part of a larger whole. These are the one. These are the word I want. These are the oh yes. These are the perturbations. That's right. What is happening on the surface of a wave. On the surface of the wave, there are little elements of moving and disappearing and contrasting and fighting one another. We are wrinkles on a texture. We are tiny bugs, if you like, on a larger wave, a twinkle on a larger wave. And that is what we need to realize, that we need to see and perceive if we step a little bit further back and see the larger picture. We are not all there is to it. We are just, with our businesses, with our cultural ambitions, with our politics, we are just movements on a larger surface, on a larger wave, a soft, a short-term happening ongoing happening on a larger wave. The larger wave is evolution. These surface events that are happening on it are the problems, are these crises, and as well as the opportunities on the level of a direction, which a direness on this high large level, on the large oneness. So we are part of a large wave. We need to step back to recognize that we are that. And the large wave is positive. It's an evolutionary wave because the universe is holotropic. It's moving toward oneness. It's moving toward the interaction of elements into a larger mass, creating larger and larger wholes. This creation process continues today, and it is unfolding right here. If you are too close, we don't see it. We only see the perturbation on the surface, the ripples on a wave. But the wave is evolutionary. The ripples from the contrary, because this is a non-linear wave. It's a wave that is coming forth in uneven bursts. And some of those bursts are truly traumatic, and other bursts are actually much more positive and creating oneness around us. We have to hop on the large wave. The wave is evolutionary, and the short-term ripples on it can be devolutionary as well as evolutionary. Move back a little bit and see that evolution is unfolding on Earth, whether we like it or not. But our individual well-being depends on whether we recognize that it is unfolding and joining it, making it a sacred mission to join the wave of evolution that brings us closer and closer towards coherence and ultimately towards coherence, if we survive, if we do this in time and recognize it deep enough to change our behavior, then we will survive and we will thrive. But we need to move from thinking about immediate surface events to the deeper reality, the reality of a giant evolutionary wave coming forth and unfolding, now involving almost 8 billion people on the planet. And nobody is outside of it, but not everybody is favored by it. Some people are being suppressed. Together, we can create a wave of which we are truly a part of. this is our sacred mission on this planet.
Thank you, Ervin. Before we open up, because I think we ought to ask people come in and join the conversation, I wonder if there are any artists out in the audience today who could come up with a symbol for this process, this shift, this upshift, this wave, this larger wave. Because I think that would be something, and coherence, of course, or super coherence, because that's something that if there was a symbol which represented what we've been talking about, it represents the realization that we need to arrive at in order to change our relationship with each other, our relationships with nature, and indeed with the divine, and to overcome this sense of separation. So maybe if anybody's inspired by the conversation, they could send us in some artistic representations of how a symbol that could around which we could unite and promote as something which symbolizes the awakening, the unfolding that we've been talking about.
David, you put it in such beautiful words. You can realize those words, remember those words. Already will go us further. Then we'll recognize this oneness in every bit of music, in every design, every drawing, every painting, every piece of action in the theater. But there is great art, significant art, as this deep realization that it is us. We're not beyond us. It is us. What we hear, what we experience is part of us. It is the quantum reality. At last, science is coming around to recognize this ancient insight that we are not separate. And everything that is happening out there is really happening in us, and vice versa. This realization is, as I said, is essential. And if you could create a symbol for this, I think there are many symbols actually already floating around.
Ah, you've already got one. Stuart Oliver, I think he's probably used AI to produce a symbol in the chat here. Very, very interesting. Well, with the light in the center, that's beautiful. Wow. Have a look, Ervin. Have a look in the chat.
Okay, I can't right now because I'm not using my regular computer.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we'll certainly, and obviously the heart is a very powerful symbol here, and of course we've got some hearts, below.